Well, today we're talking about rooted. And in this bag here, I have a variety of seeds. Now, each seed looks a little bit different. Each seed will bring forth a certain kind of plant. You cannot plant one seed and expect another kind of fruit to be born. But for many of us, when we are planted in this world, we long to be something that we're not. We long to be like someone else and follow in their footsteps, following in their paths. Yet we're but a seed, planted for a reason, for a purpose, and to bear fruit. For many of us, we struggle with that. For many of us, we don't always understand that. As you may have guessed, this is not the full children's message. This is more for the older adults in the room. But it's something that we all can learn. Children often remind us over and over again, they don't have fear. They'll run off into different places, not even realizing that they might be in danger. That fear of danger is something we learn. And yet at the same time, too, sometimes that fear holds us back to the possibilities of what it is we could accomplish in this world. For each and every one of us gathered here today, we are children of God. Yet sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we're so fearful. Sometimes we're so longing of what it is we hope to be, even though we're planted to be something else. I want you to stop and think about that for a moment. For many of you, you've been in a career, well, what feels like forever. Some of you are retired from that career, meaning you got so tired of that career, you moved on from it and are in a different chapter. But now, what does life look like? What is your calling all about? All right, we're going to continue on with the actual sermon now. Well, the series today is called Rooted. For many of us, though, when we start thinking about plants, we start thinking of seeds, of that new life. The very first thing we think about is that new life, that possibility of what it could be. Now, for many of us, we're facing fall time. Not necessarily the time in which we're thinking about seeds and planting. No, that was months ago. Now we're wondering, how have those survived? And for many of us, as we look upon our lawns, we realize they haven't. But it's here in the seed that we have hope, we have possibility, we have anything that could happen. We have new life. It's here we're also reminded of the fragile life that we may even hold in our hands. Because in a moment, in an instant, it could be wiped away. We go from a seed into a sprout. But if we go back to find that seed again, you cannot find it. For that seed is destroyed. But then from this sprout, we have what I have referred to as, well, the twig. It now has another leaf. It's gotten beyond that first step, that first stage of growth, and it has new life that is continuing on. Yet still the fragility is there. The need of nutrients, of light, of warmth, of rains, of care and compassion are needed. All it would take is a storm to come through and wash that plant away. All it would take is an animal walking by to crush it. So the life that we have is still precious. For many of us, this is where we see ourselves, because we're so fearful of how it is we might be crushed, the storms that may blow us away, and the fear of that tomorrow may not be. But then there's another step that we all long for. Our next step is growing to the possibility of where we all hope to be, offering shade for others. Now think about that for a moment. Your roots have run deep. You've been growing for years. You've experienced storms and challenges in this world. The wind may blow, and yet now you're able to scoff at it and say, I can withstand this. I have faced bigger storms than these. Your roots have run deep, so you are able to get the water, the nutrients, and everything that you might need for yourself. And now you're able to offer to those who are toiling in the heat of the day some rest, some comfort. Now, for many of us, seems like the end. This is the end of a tree, of the possibility of what it could be, and yet there is one more stage. Because then we find out that this is an apple tree. And now we want even more. We want some of that red, delicious apples to be able to make into jellies and jams, into pies, into cobblers. We want those delicious goods, that fruit. We want what it is that tree was meant for. But we don't want it just for ourselves. We want to be able to sit in the shade of that apple tree and be able to share in the fruits with family, with friends. Now, for many of us, we know this journey of a seed, of a tree. But now, what does that really mean for us as disciples? Over and over throughout his life, Jesus would wander throughout the world and speak to people in parables. Examples around them that they would be able to see on an ongoing basis, that they might be able to understand what it is God is talking about in this world by absolutely seeing the world around them. And so I strove to do that as well. As we're thinking about this idea of being a disciple in this world, and also the seeds. That very first seed that we are, we find ourselves being complacent. We find ourselves not being able to go anywhere, not being able to do anything, and for many of us, we kind of like that. Because without going anywhere, there's no surprises. We can expect what's going on around us. We're free from challenges. And everything just has to come to us. But as we are planted as a seed, we find ourselves to be more of a consumer than anything. Gathering all the nutrients that we might need, longing for the water, the care, the warmth, that all we are longing for. We find ourselves consuming over and over and over again. That consumption is what truly surrounds us. But then we begin going into that second stage, that twig stage. We go from being a consumer to now being connected. Our roots begin growing deeper. We find out where we need to go and how it is we need to grow. We begin to growing not only sideways, but also other ways. We begin recognizing that there's more around us in this world. We begin going from consuming to feed our own needs to now going and realizing that there's more and more around us. We begin recognizing that we can actually learn and grow and benefit from those around us. As we become connected, the community around us becomes even more important. The community in who it is we are surrounding ourselves with is important. We begin recognizing that if we only surround ourselves with complacent people or consumeristic people, that we're absolutely not going to grow. Now, in these two images, in these two stages, we hear about these parables that Jesus himself spoke of how it is we're searching and longing in this world, searching for the lost sheep, the lost coin. We're going out into the world seeking what the world has to offer by leaving home, even wishing that our own parent was gone and we might receive the inheritance. Over and over again, these lessons of the parable draw us closer to how it is we are going to consume, but recognizing that there's more to us in this community. As we begin recognizing, we hear those lessons of Jesus calling his own disciples, of growing, gathering them together and teaching them how to pray, leading them and guiding them and recognizing how it is they can serve and care for others in this world. As they begin growing in this connection, in this community, we go from being connected to now being committed. Now, I want you to truly understand, when I say going from connected to committed, I'm not referring to you getting a straitjacket and going somewhere for a few years. It's not going off the deep end. What I'm talking about is recognizing that you're striving for something more. That tree that has the ability to offer shade, to offer comfort, to offer rest to those around them. Here, you enter into a stage of recognizing the abundance that God has truly given to you. The obstacles that you have overcome, the demons that you have wrestled with, the challenges that you have faced. But now you're seeing others around you facing those and very similar ones yourself. And instead of watching them and saying, oh, I wonder how they're going to handle this, you're able to enter into their life and approach them and say, I see you're having a hard time. I want you to know I'm praying for you. And if you ever want to talk about it, I'm right here. You're not giving them the answers. You're not giving them everything that they need. But you're offering to them the rest that they might need and connecting them to a deeper community that might be able to offer them help when they're ready for it. Jesus did this over and over and over again with his disciples. He paired them up 2 by 2 and sent them out into the world to heal the sick, to give sight to the blind, to cast out demons. Now, for many of us, this does sound crazy. And yet, when those disciples went out into the world, they understood exactly what God was calling them to do and be. The worries that they had before of just their basic needs were already met and then some. They were able to go out and be that blessing to others, to offer that care, compassion, that hope of what it is those people were desperately longing for. And yet, for many, they did not seem want to grow. They were simply satisfied in being in those lower stages of having their needs met, of being in community together. And those disciples recognized that. The disciples recognized that simply offering shade to someone is not only the end goal of what it is God was truly striving for us all to be. Yes, we have happiness. Yes, we have joy. Yes, we have some sense of comfort, peace, or even a step of fulfillment, but it does not satisfy all of our longings. And Jesus called them back together and said, "You're right. There's even more." We're going from being committed to now being compelled. Understanding that you're not just simply committed to a goal or a purpose, but now you're being stirred in your heart and in your mind that your whole life might be for those who are in need. That the fruit you are bearing is going to be a blessing for your loved ones, for your friends, but even those who you have yet to ever meet, for a generation who will come after you, who will not know you, but whom others are speaking about as the one who has blessed them. As we find ourselves longing to be compelled, as we think about these 4 different stages of discipleship, many of us stop and we might think about those who have been in our own life and how it is they have helped us. Our grandparents who drug us to church to compel us to be connected into a community. Or maybe it was a friend who got us connected to make our own friends and to do work for the sake of others. And even still, recognizing how others could even serve us, that we might be a blessing to them in that light. Over and over and over again, Jesus sought his disciples to continue to grow deeper and stronger. Stronger in their faith, that they might absolutely be compelled to go to the place where he is ultimately going. For many of us, we don't always recognize this as a tree. We don't always recognize this as the goal of our life. Yet it is the cross that so many of us often come to. It's here at the cross where we absolutely recognize the fullness of Jesus Christ in this world. And it's here in the midst of it all where we recognize a tree's greatest purpose. Not just the food that might satisfy us for a moment, or for some children an hour. It's not just simply a home that can be built for a lifetime. No, it's here in the cross that we find the intersection of generations that come together, of a people who are united in voice, in calling, in purpose, in community. It's here in the cross that we find our wholeness. Every single day of our lives, though, we need to be reminded that we are turning to the cross, that our roots are continually growing deeper, that the fruit that we are bearing today may not be for our own benefit. It may not even be for our children or even our grandchildren, but for those who we may never meet at all. This is truly at the very heart of our calling. As we continue on this journey over the next several weeks, you're going to be invited into challenging questions, into situations some of you have faced and some of you are in the middle of, and some of you have never faced before. As we continually wrestle with them, we're going to talk about them on Sunday morning, but also you're going to have an opportunity throughout the week to gather together with this community and be able to grow even deeper. into those last two stages that are so much harder to grow into. Every single day, we find ourselves facing storms and challenges, but also receiving Christ's love and Christ's hope. May you experience that every single day. Amen.